What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best Ice Shot Ranger build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both leveling and any game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. And just before we continue, thanks to this video sponsor Wikili. Wikili is a website that is a build planner which allows you to create and share one's human builds. So all you need to do is click my link in the description and then click this create a build button. And then from here just select your weapons, mods, gear and everything else, and then click save and publish. On top of this, you can find even other player builds, put your own social media links for other people to find, and much more. So if you're looking for builds on this website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup is a very new version of one of the best builds in the game, the Lightning Arrow Deadeye. However, unlike in that build, in this one we are using the Ice Shot in the combination with the Lightning Rod and a Blink, which will give us this insane mobility and speed farming potential. What I like most about this setup is that we can simply spam one single skill and pretty much destroy tier 16 maps and reach up to 5 million DPS because of how many buffs we have working in the background. Like you can see from the gameplay, we are basically deleting enemies in split seconds. And on top of this, we can also delete bosses, by us having also a very high boss damage from using the Lightning Rod and the Orb of Storms. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Ranger has many tools to address this problem. And with the optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or gear to completely solve this issue. So if you don't mind using only from 1 to 2 skills, and completely speed clearing through hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Ranger and our ascendancy is the Deadeye. Then for the first skill we have the Ice Shot with the support gems such as the Primal Armament, Martial Tempo, Cold Infusion, Ricochet and the Heft. Then second we get the Lightning Rod with a Scatter Shot, Concentrated Effect, Elemental Focus and the Close Combat. Then next we got the Orb of Storms with the Chain, Deep Freeze and the Fount of Mana. Next we have the Herald of the Thunder with the Execute and Elemental Focus. Next up we have the Herald of the Ice with the Long Shot, Cold Penetration, Magnified Effect and the Cold Mastery. Next we got Wind Dancer with the Cannibalism, Clarity and Herbalism. Next we have the Bow Shot with the Life Drain, Soul Thief, Wind Wave and the Blind. And finally for the last two we are using the Blink and the Mana Remnants with no support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the Ice Shot and the Bow Shot to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we also have a leveling build, in case if you are starting your journey from level 0, and you wanna use it up until about level 25, where you should start getting our most important skills. So first off we have the Lightning Arrow with the Martial Tempo and the Lightning Infusion. Then next we have the Lightning Rod with a Scatter Shot and Magnified Effect. And finally we are using Escape Shot with the Deep Freeze and Concentrated Effect. This is your basic setup up until you get our build's two most important skills. In the early stages of progression we are using the Lightning Arrow and the Rod as our main ability combo, as they are very powerful especially at the beginning. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and by the way our javel placement is also important, so that's why we here have these type of lines. So then with that said, we want to start at this evasion node, and then go like this while also taking the cat-like agility. Then next we keep on going and take both of these, so master fletching and the freedom of movement. Then from here we wanna go up here and then go to the left side, and then get all of these nodes. Then afterwards we circle back and now go until the end and take this feathered fletching. And from this point and onwards you can just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. Also, when we take a look at this outline, you may think that we waste a lot of points just to get this Mind Over Matter keystone. However, this is a big part of our defense, as we are already doing insane amount of damage, mainly from our DPS nodes and the weapon and gear choices, so we can easily afford to do this. I did a lot of testing and it was very hard to survive tier 16 maps. So after I talked with a bunch of players and did testing, we figured out that going a bit overboard and taking the mind over matter was a huge life changer for this specific build. Also, keep in mind that all of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more dexterity. Our gloves, aka the hand of the wisdom in action, will give us 3% increased attack speed for every 25% dexterity. So if you have stacked it as much as I have, then this is yet another reason of how we get these crazy damage numbers. And then on top of this, a lot of our build is also improved by our specific jewels that we use. So for two most important ones we want to use against the darkness, the Time Lost Diamond, and then Heroic Tragedy, aka the Timeless Jewel. And then for the rest of our slots we want to use the Fletching Emerald of Velocity. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Gathering Winds, as it increases your movement and attack speed, while also giving you a huge evasion boost. Then second we get the Point Blank, which this time will increase your damage to the close proximity targets. Then next we wanna get the Endless Munitions, as it increases both your clear speed and single target damage. The third trial is usually pretty hard, but it's definitely worth doing it as soon as you can, as this will give us a huge DPS boost. And then finally we want to get the Wind Ward, as especially when doing higher tier maps and content, you will need to get all the damage reduction that you can. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be very smart not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost. So following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure to not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here, and don't forget to check this video's description to find a link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep on going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives. Which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter, so again it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Then in the next part we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Widow Veil Bow with insane bonus stats, which gives us from 150 to 200% increased bonus, which is gained from equipping a quiver. To be honest, this is one of the biggest reasons of how we can get to 5 million DPS, and why you can see that crazy gameplay of one-shotting enemies. However, no matter what bow you use, this build will still function, but just not to the insane level that I can. So then for the bow stats, you want to look for attack speed, critical chance bonus, lightning damage, and pretty much anything else that will boost our DPS. And then for our offhand, we got the primed quiver, which this time is quite important. So with this we get increased attack speed, and for bonus stats we want to go with adds cold damage to attacks, more accuracy, increased projectile speed, plus levels to all projectile skills, even more increased attack speed and more to dexterity. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Hunter hood with evasion, and for more we want even more evasion and increased evasion. Then also max mana and fire and cold resistance. Then for the chest we got the Queen of the Forest with evasion, and for its stats we get increased evasion, fire, cold and lightning resistance. Also we get increased movement speed per every 500 evasion. This is yet again the reason of why we build our evasion so high. However, again this is not required, so if you can afford this, then look for any other chest piece with similar stats. Then for the belt we have the utility belt with 20% quicker flask recovery, more evasion and max life, as well as fire and cold resistance. Then for gloves we got the Hand of the Wisdom and Action. Same thing applies, if you don't want it, then just get anything else. But if I would say to get at least one of these expensive items, then this would be the one. As because of these gloves we want to stack our intelligence or dexterity as high as possible. And then for bonus stats we want dexterity, intelligence, increased attack speed and adds lightning damage to attacks. Then for boots we're using the expert lizard scale boots with evasion. And for bonus stats we get more evasion, cold and lightning resistance, as well as stun threshold. This is one of the only builds where we don't want movement speed on the boots, because our chest piece will give us movement speed from evasion, and at the same time disable any other movement speed modifier. In the endgame you will get more speed than any basic speed boots, so of course if you can then get this item, but if you can't then go with any basic chest, and then just pick the movement speed on the boots. Then for the first ring we got the ruby ring with the fire resistance, and for more we got evasion, max mana, intelligence and increased mana regeneration rate. While for the second one we have the prismatic ring, with percentage to all elemental resistances. And for more we got increased cold damage, max mana, intelligence and lightning and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the crimson amulet with the life regen per second. And for more we want max energy shield, max life, max mana, intelligence, more to all elemental resistances and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have runes. During early item progression, most gear is staggered with resistant runes. However, once your elemental resistances have been capped, and resistant runes are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase your maximum life, with body runes or consider sacting as soul core. So right now on our weapon, chest and head we are using the iron rune, and then on the rest of our equipment we are using the glacial rune. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. And then after level 65, you just wanna keep continuing repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more in-depth tutorial, check out my gearing guide video. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the Taving charm for when I become frozen. Then second, get the Stone charm for stuns. And then finally, grab the Golden charm for when we kill rares or uniques. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting. So feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the easiest and simplest builds in the game. So our main rotation is just to spam the ice shot and the bow shot for easy monster kills, which are most of our targets. But then specifically for bosses, you can as well place down Orb of Storms, and then spam the ice shot and the lightning rod. This will give you a great buff and insane amount of shock lightning damage for single targets. And finally, if you're low geared and run into a mana problem, especially against bosses, then try to get one Jewel with mana on kill, or mana on kill from the quiver. And as well, this might sound obvious, especially at the beginning, when you might not have yet unlocked mana on kill, but if you run out of mana, then just simply cast less skills. And wait, you will be doing very high damage anyways, so casting few less skills won't really impact the gameplay that much. But it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're under-geared or under-leveled. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best ranger builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.